Good afternoon, everybody. What a full crowd. Great to see so many familiar new faces. 25 trillion in the room today. Dozens of CEOs. This doesn't happen every day. It's a very special moment for all of us. I'm Mark Tulay. I serve as the director of CECP's Strategic Investor Initiative, and I'll be the MC for today if my voice hangs in there. First, I wanted to do something and recognize a few special people. Could the advisory board of the Strategic Investor Initiative please stand up and hold your hand up? Like it or not. Without them, we would not be here today. And it's just been a wonderful experience working with each and all of you. But as Doug Conant says, we can always do better. So we got a great program lined up today. We've got opening remarks from Vanguard's Bill McNabb, followed by a fireside chat with Curtis Ravenel and Mike Bloomberg, starting shortly. And then we'll have a special guest scheduled to speak after Mike. SEC Commissioner Robert Jackson will be providing his unique perspective after that. So that's a special late edition. And then after that, we'll have CEOs presenting their long-term plans for sustainable value creation. This is the heart of the program. We'll have Alex Gorski from Johnson & Johnson, David Abney from UPS, Ken Frazier from Merck. Then we'll actually give you a break, because if we don't have one break, I get in big trouble. So we'll have a 20-minute break. Omar Israk from Medtronic will follow. Then Paul Pullman from Unilever will bring us home. So what a great day. And a few logistics. Because of all this great content, we're squeezing two days of content into half a day. So we have very little flex time. And those of you that know me, I start on time and I end on time. That's my one rule. I might have a couple more. Lastly, in your folders, you will find an investor letter. Now that investor letter, it's on the right-hand side, is signed by 9 major institutional investors and pension funds, and is the lead signatory is Bill McNabb. That is a letter that is meant to drive excellence in the production of long-term plans. I'd like to recognize Brian Thomas and Glenn Borum for a second to just give them applause for all their work on that letter. And also in your folders, you'll find this evaluation form. It's very important, CEO Investor Forum evaluation form. It also doubles as your ticket into the reception, so there's another reason to complete it. I'll leave you with a favorite quote before I introduce Daryl Brewster. Hearing tells you that the music is playing, but listening, truly listening, tells you what the song is saying. There are times when we hear, but we sometimes forget to listen. So I hope you'll take the time to listen to what's being presented today and to share your feedback on these forms. They're very important. They go back to the CEOs and drive continuous improvement. This last thing I'll say is the Strategic Investor Initiative is not just a program, to me. It's a movement. It's a movement to bring long-term perspective to capital market decision-making. It's a movement to influence voting and engagement decision-making. It's a movement to move trillions in capital to companies that demonstrate true excellence in long-term performance. It's a movement to move financial markets towards more sustainable outcomes. So that's our goal between now and the end of the day. So we've got a little work to do. And with that, it's my privilege to welcome to the stage Daryl Brewster.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, and good afternoon. And it's really a delight to have so many talented CEOs here today, as well as investors to come together. And thank you, Mark, for those kind words and the great leadership you're providing for this initiative. And thank you all to our attendees. For those who don't know, CCP was founded nearly 20 years ago by CEOs for CEOs, with the belief that the world's leading companies can and should be a force for good in society. And that was not only just good for society, but it would be really good for business. And at CCP, we've kind of taken that up as our mantra as we've moved forward. Each year we bring together CEOs, leading CEOs, to talk about the role of business society. We just completed our 13th annual session inside. We had some 50 CEOs, well over $1 trillion of market cap, talking about how by being a force for good, it actually is good for their business. Great examples from MasterCard, from Ecolab, from US Bank, from PwC, KPMG, and others about that area. So we're really delighted to do that. At our session a few years ago, we heard from investors saying, this is all kind of good, but you CEOs are too short-term oriented. And of course, the CEO said, we're not the short-term ones, it's you other guys. And that was sort of the challenge. We polled our CEOs. We found that 86% said they were too short-term oriented. 86%. McKinsey's seeing similar results in their research as well. We studied the research from people like Bob Eccles, who's with us here today, and Raj Sisodi and others, McKinsey, that basically said companies run for the long term, outperform over the long term. They perform better because they understand their significant stakeholders, which includes customers, employees, their communities, the planet, as well as investors. And they understand and they recognize they deal with their material risks on a business. So we found some good research on that. We've read the letters from Vanguard, Bill McNabb was with us today, from BlackRock and others, saying we're looking to hear more about this. And so at CECP, we decided to act and to operationalize those letters and the call for the long term. Not that the trading doesn't matter. The quarterly things, the updates are incredibly important. But we need to strike a better balance on that. We've put together, as you've seen, a world-class advisory board that's with us today. We really appreciate it. And that advisory board comes from big companies, part of CECP, comes from big investors, and it comes from the professional service firms who can bring it all together. We listen to others who are outside that group, but this is a group who really helps us to advance these efforts. A year ago, on this very day, we held our first CEO Investor Forum. Wasn't quite as big a crowd. We had actually a number of companies that presented. We had a second one last fall at Bloomberg. This is our third. We have 3 more planned, and we are learning a lot along the way. Mark showed the investor letter, which we think is terrific and gives us a great sense of how we can really bring that all together. But we're also getting ready to scale things up. And to scale things up, we need input. We need to fill out those feedback cards, give us some insights about how we can make this part of the way we think about companies and invest and engage with companies. With that, we have a question we want to roll up here, a polling question. In front of you are the polling devices. So please, you're going to have an opportunity to vote on about 4 or 5 of these today. It's a little bit like Chicago. You get to vote early and often. So you'll just very simply push the number corresponding to the answer. You don't need to push send. And this is, what is your view, this audience, on how the balance of how CEOs currently spend their time? Are they overly short-term? Somewhat in balance? Too long-term? Way, way, way too long-term. So this is focusing in on public company CEOs, public company CEOs. So push the number corresponding. Let's run the clock down. 3, 2, 1. All right. And we'll see what the group says. All right. So we have about 78% of people here. By the way, if that number wasn't that good, we'd have to shut down the meeting now. But 78% of folks saying, nearly 4 to 5, not quite as high as what CEOs said, saying the companies are either somewhat short-term or overly short-term. 1 in 7 saying it's about in balance, and a few who are thinking, we do have a couple of hedge fund guys here today, who are thinking companies might be a little bit too long-term oriented. But a helpful perspective and backdrop of what we're doing. We're also delighted to make this work, which is really how do we really evolve and just create a better capital markets. It really requires a lot of teamwork, Mark's team and his group, our CEOs, but we're really delighted to have an outstanding co-chairs of this organization. And I'm going to be introducing Bill McNabb, now chairman of Vanguard.